Some of you might remember the good old days. I mean, I know I do. And this how it was. But things change, not always for the best. Case in point, these days people love being told what to do. So on that note, if I teach you something, if I help open your eyes, I show you doors you didn't realize were there, you could help me out for helping you out. Also, be aware, I do write books. This is available on lulu.com. The price is modest, and that's an understatement. I also moderate Chessboard Books, where I sell other people's books, tarot cards, and there is one vinyl currently available if you're into that. Brian Warner, Marilyn Manson. Hopefully you enjoy the presentation. Hi there. Welcome to Logic Land. Primarily speaking, this is going to relate to Seminar 2, just to be clear. But before we begin, I want you to appreciate the following. I just asked Google if the Obsidian Monarch channel could be confirmed as having been deleted. It's a poor way to put it on my behalf. As it reads, based on search results, a YouTube channel named Obsidian Monarch was reported as deleted or terminated in early January 2026. Because I'm censored on the DARPA internet, unlike most of you. Because I can teach you things you are not supposed to know. Assume otherwise. And you can read the other jazz if you want. The appeal was rejected, I got fucked over, and this is not the first time this has happened. And most likely the reason it just answered this is because another one of my channels is where I documented what took place. I don't think anybody else made any buzz about it because most people do not care. Because most people don't know. The first time I asked, it said this. Based on the provided search results, there is no information confirming that YouTube recently deleted a channel specifically named Obsidian Monarch, because Google is a tool of propaganda and it often contradicts itself, unless you know the answer to the question you are asking. Just to be clear. Now, this is what we're going to talk about. Noah's 3 sons. Okay? And what I need you to appreciate is the following. I always misspell these, Google. Please help me spell them correctly. You have 3 branches to Judaism. One is Ashkenazi. Another one refers to a group of people, crudely speaking, in Asia. And the other refers to people, crudely speaking, who live in Africa. What are the other 2 names? Let's see if it will do it. Fuck yeah. Just so you guys have this. Here, I'll take a screenshot in case I lose what I'm doing, because you gotta document everything these days. So once again, this has to do with Seminar 2, and if I'm not mistaken, these are simply rebrandings of age-old names you're not supposed to pair with these to appreciate what's what. In other words, you're supposed to forget what came before and not understand what's taking place now. Again, poorly put on my behalf. But if you think about it, it gets a point across. But it all hinges on you using your brain. So the uppermost, Ashkenazi refers to people who live in Europe and Germany, crudely speaking. Sephardi or Sephardic, that usually relates to Africa, crudely speaking, and Spain, as it reads. Do think of the black nobility, nudge, nudge, something, something. They are intimately associated with the crown. They're actually on the royal crest, or family crest, if memory serves me. Look into it, don't buy into it. And 2 of the names of the black nobility are the House of Orange and the House of Liechtenstein. You can use what I leave online as a tool, unlike what most superficial internet babies crap out, regurgitate, repost, etc., etc., etc. And the last of the bunch, I never say this right, but I like to say it as Mizrahi. They relate to Asia. Okay? You with me? So you got white, black, and yellow, if you're thinking in terms of colors. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to marginalize anybody. I'm trying to paint a picture so that you understand what we're cooking with, since a lot of people will say fire, and hey, so-and-so's cooking. But most of them aren't, greasing the wheels of fill in the blank if you can, if you're moderately clever. And you can come up with something slightly original. Chances are most of you can't. All right, so bear these in mind. Now moving backwards, and let's see if they're in the same order. They're not. So the top and the bottom have been reversed. Okay? So let's begin from the bottom because that will mirror what you just saw. So Japheth will relate to white, Ham will relate to black, and Shem will relate to yellow, which is why I often stress simplify things, heathens. Because just like that, now you should understand what we're talking about. These are older names. These predate the relatively new 3 branches of Judaism, crudely speaking, which I will overuse often because it gets a point across. Okay? Japheth, as it reads, and this is supposedly the oldest etymology that the DARPA Internet's Google could drum up. It may not be, is my point. This is a superficial Google search, make no mistake of that, I'm well aware of this. And you should be too. You should scrutinize anything and everything anybody ever imparts to you. So assume what I'm telling you today is bullshit. Okay? Assume I'm wrong. Don't repost it. Don't regurgitate it. Don't buy into it. Look into it. Take notes. Be diligent. If you're not invested, you're not involved. And if you're not invested and you're not involved, you are the problem. Complacency got us this far and things are bad because you and I are not surrounded by smart people. So back to point. As it reads, Japheth means enlarged, may he extend, or wide-spreading. This etymology is derived from a Hebrew wordplay in Genesis 9:27, where Noah blesses him by saying, may God enlarge Japheth. Moving along, and once again, that was, white having to do with Germany and Europe, which doesn't have any Semitic ties whatsoever, just to be clear, to the land of Canaan, which we're going to discuss next. Ham means hot, warm, or sunburnt. I'm going to read that twice because you will hear contradicting bullshit in real life and on the DARPA internet. Specifically, spoon-fed to you by DARPA's Google, a tool of propaganda. So once again, the etymology of ham related to Africa and the color black, or technically what would absorb all of the colors. Okay, and what we just discussed is what would reflect all of the colors, being white. Ham means hot, warm, or sunburnt. Okay? It is believed to be derived from Hebrew, reflecting heat or the dark. I'll read that last part again, reflecting heat or the dark. Fertile soil associated with Africa, particularly Egypt, which is on the top of Africa, in case you don't know that. I've met people, dated people, and they did not realize that Egypt was part of Africa. Things like that should trouble you. But knowledge, that's all we can accrue. That's all we can gather. We will never embody the whole of wisdom in these person suits, and most people haven't figured that much out either. In other words, I don't know everything, and I might get things wrong, and you likely know things that I don't. Nudge, nudge, something, something. So back to the point. Now it's going to tell you, not a skin color reference. Why would it tell you something like that? Because that's propaganda. I'm going to read the etymology one last time having to do with ham to drive a point home. Ham means hot, warm, or sunburnt. It is believed to be derived from Hebrew, reflecting heat or the dark. Fertile soil, the earth. Yeah? Associated with Africa, particularly Egypt. And we can disregard the last part because it contradicts logic if you use your brain. Assume I'm wrong still. Look into it. Do think of the color spectrum. Bear in mind, you got black and you got white. We are talking about the extremes of a spectrum. What we discuss next is in the middle of the spectrum. In other words, these bullet points are wildly inaccurate. If we were thinking, in a logical course, for the lack of better words. So let's talk about yellow, Shem. Shem means name, renown, or fame. It is rooted in Hebrew, signifying reputation or identity, and is the root for Semitic. So do think of Asia and Africa, if I'm not mistaken, relating to the two aspects of this that have a Semitic tie. Japheth does not, and you can prove that if you dig into it. Bear in mind, I have light skin. I have less melanin in my skin. What I speak to is what reflects reality, what reflects history, what reflects the knowledge that you could obtain and utilize if you're capable of analyzing and interpreting, reasoning things out on your own. I'm not talking about clicking repost on something that was spoon-fed to you. And if it popped up in your feed, just to be clear, it is likely a propaganda campaign because we live in the age of disinformation and patently fascist censorship, not the age of information. You are not being spoon-fed things that are beneficial to you and I. These things have been hijacked, weaponized, and corrupted. Now, moving along, and for review, we paralleled Ashkenazi with Japheth, being white, relating to Germany and Europe. We paralleled, Sephardi or Sephardic with Ham, relating to black and Africa. And we related Mizrahi with Shem, having to do with yellow and Asia. Once again, this is Seminar 2. This is superficial to me, but this is information you could reason out. I've never seen anybody parallel these things. Ever. Because kids are not cooking with fire. I can teach you things you are not supposed to know. Once again, I'm talking about things that reflect history based on logic. Not corrupted outlines, controlled opposition narratives. It's important for you to appreciate that. All right, so Noah's 3 sons. Okay? Noah's 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So yellow, black, and white. Asia, Africa, and Europe, crudely speaking. Repopulated the earth after, and I hate when earth is in all capital letters, earth is not a wandering star. It's not a wandering star. And what I just told you, you can use as a tool. It's not an adult fairy tale. It's an element, for fuck's sake. Also bear this in mind too. When I was talking about a spectrum and I was talking about black and I was talking about the earth, yeah? The earth is not black, typically speaking. The earth is usually considered the green earth, but if you think about the soil and you think about the etymology of Adam, that relates to red clay, not black clay. Just to be clear in terms of how things shake out. You do have a red root chakra, nudge, nudge, something, something. Once again, I'm cooking with fire, motherfuckers. Repopulated the earth after the flood, and their descendants traditionally associated with 3 major land masses. Which jives with what I've been telling you so far, does it not? So let's see if this is in the order again. So this is in the same order as the last one. So we'll begin at the bottom again. So Japheth settled Europe and northern Asia. You know, the Ashkenazi, who do not have Semitic ties. Typically speaking, associated with what would reflect everything having to do with white or less melanin. Moving along, we have Ham, which relates to Sephardic or Sephardi. Poorly put on my behalf, and I apologize. Settled Africa, including Kush, Ethiopia, Mizraim, which I never say right, Egypt, put Libya. And what did I leave out? This has to do with black, which would absorb everything. And I may have left something out, and if I did, I apologize. I'm I'm spinning plates, motherfuckers. Back to point. Shem, which relates to Mizrahi. And I know you guys were waiting for that and very eager for me to butcher it and, pull out the higher octaves. This has to do with Asia and yellow and the Middle East, including Hebrews, Assyrians, Persians. And it's nice to hear these things too, because it does branch off and it does relate to other groups of people under these, 3 banners, which everything is based on. I shit you not. So if you've ever run through, let's do this for a moment and I'll come back to this. Helena Blavatsky. She shit out and it didn't do it. And Aleister Crowley and the races. A lot of propaganda campaigns are wound up in this, and it didn't fucking do it again. Author, Helena Blavatsky books. Some of you might know what I'm talking about. Fuck Google. Fuck Google. Back to point. This is the one we were on, I'm pretty fucking sure. Let's move along and I'll keep reading. But if you run through Helena Blavatsky, what is it called? It's in the other room. Let me pull off my boots and I'm going to read you the... 1 second. And there's a number of volumes having to do with it. The last of which, it was likely not written by her, but people shop it around as if it was. What's it called? The Secret Doctrine. And her last name is spelled Blavatsky. We'll do this fast since I have it. Blavatsky. Races. It still didn't do it, but she shopped around a lot of fucking bullshit. And here's the bullshit. Atlanteans, and the Aryans, and the Lumerians, and the 6th and the 7th races. Fucking rot for fill in the blank. Technically internet babies who are not willing to challenge narratives. Just to be clear, Atlantis is it's a second-hand account allegedly handed to Plato, who was part of a Pythagorean cult. The cult of Pythagoras. You and I are not part of a mystery school. You and I are not part of any of this garbage. A boys' club, a secret society, any of that other jazz. At least I don't think you are. And if you're a Mason, a Freemason, they're not teaching you the deep answers. They're not teaching you the really neat shit. I guarantee it. And you don't find these things online either, just to be clear. So you'll have people repeat embellishments of the Atlantis story, the narrative, which is blown up into nothing but propaganda. It began as propaganda. An aspect of this may reflect, history, the antediluvian age, if you will. But we have no proof of it whatsoever. It's all conjecture and hearsay. It's popular opinion and hearsay. And this shit is in place to corrupt what I'm talking about today. That's why that's important to understand. So moving along with this superficial Google search on the DARPA internet. Key details on the sons of Noah. And bear in mind, I'm going somewhere with this. Well, let's see. We'll begin at the bottom again. Japheth, regarded as the ancestor of the Indo-European peoples. God, I'm fucking up all the plural jazz, pardon me. Settling in the coastlands of the nations, which includes Europe and part of Asia Minor. Now, that's interesting if that's in fact true. That I do not know with certainty, so take that with many pinches of salt. It could be that last bit was slipped in just like the bit that was last earlier, having to do with, it doesn't have to do with skin color, despite the fact that Ham has to do with sunburnt and black. Maybe. Tread carefully. You and I are being spoon-fed shit. Ham, often associated with Africa and the regions of the Middle East, such as Canaan. I'm going to read that again. Often associated with Africa and regions of the Middle East, such as Canaan. Where Palestine is located, that's the land of Canaan, just to be clear. Through his sons, Cush, Mizraim, Egypt, Put, and Canaan. Now let's move up to Shem. Shem, known as the ancestor of the Semitic peoples, including the Hebrews, Armenians, maybe I said that right, Assyrians, and Elamites, the Persians, respectively. Down at the bottom it says, the division is based on the Table of Nations in Genesis 10, which outlines the geographical spread of their descendants. Is there anything else up at the top? We already read that. So let's move on. And what I want you to appreciate is this next bit. Did it work? This is what people will shop around, and this is what has justified something that should not be. Once again, just to be clear. Nobody should be persecuted. Nobody should be somebody's fucking servant. There should be no serfs. Nobody should have been subjugated in any form or way. Ever. Any creed, color, fill in the fucking blank. But this is a curiosity of mine. This is what's shopped around still to this day. And it's very curious when you think back, who wrote these things? Who has edited these things? Who has translated? I'm talking about the Bible, scrolls, clay tablets. I mean, if you look up Zecharia Sitchin, he was a controlled opposition asset. Look up his home office, where it was. That's proof that he was bullshit. He was full of shit. He did not know how to translate or he was paid to lie to people and spoon feed them, alien propaganda in place to pave the way for a one world religion. That's one of many people who was horrible at, here, let's do this, translations. Zecharia Sitchin. Just so you know who I'm talking about. And you've probably seen some of this shit. It was well-financed, well-circulated, and normalized. Let's also do this. Did Zecharia Sitchin have Jewish blood? What say you, Google? Yes! And let's see if it will also tell us this. Was Zecharia Sitchin Ashkenazi? No. Which of the three branches of Judaism was Zecharia Sitchin a part of? Will it tell us? It doesn't always do it, even though those are supposedly the three. Born in a Jewish family in Russia, raised mandatory Palestine, he acquired profound knowledge. Semitic doesn't state outright, and we're not digging too much. I'm not going to dig into it that much. Another one would be this guy. Golden Dawn, McGregor Mathers. Samuel Little McGregor Mathers crapped out so many bad translations, and I just wanted to give you two examples of people who could not do their job. They should have been fired, for fuck's sake. But they were most likely paid to mislead and manipulate the masses. Assume I'm wrong. You could consider this an episode of Tangent Cam. I got ahead of myself. So I asked, was McGregor Mathers Jewish? And it states, Samuel Little McGregor Mathers was not Jewish. Born in such and such, blah, 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 blah. So he didn't have any Jewish blood. Well, this is the way things work. Take Star Wars, for example. Carrie Fisher, Padme, Natalie Portman, and that space cowboy Harrison Ford, all Ashkenazi, just to be clear. Harrison Ford likes to pretend that he's not because he has an earring. Mark Hamill's not, but he has shown support for Israel because he's a fascist. He'll also polarize people online because that's the Hegelian dialectic in practice. Fascism in practice. And the character of Obi-Wan, yeah, stay with me. Ewan McGregor and Alec Guinness, not in that order, of course, they both played the part. Neither of them have Jewish blood, but they married into Jewish families. Not Ashkenazi, if memory serves me, but some of the other ones. So McGregor Mathers, check this out. Yes, Samuel Little McGregor Mathers married into a Jewish family. Was the Jewish family that Samuel McGregor Mathers married into Ashkenazi? I don't know this answer, so let's see. She was a member of the prominent Ashkenazi Jewish family. Red flags, motherfuckers. Now I'm going to read this to you, because it has to do with servitude. And I imagine it's probably a corrupted outline. Maybe I'm wrong. Again, take it with many, many pinches of salt. Either way, nobody should be persecuted. So, imagine your ancestors fucked up once. Do you think everybody should be fucking cursed? I'm like, it's pretty over the top. As it reads, the curse of Ham, or curse of Canaan. Once again, the land of Canaan. You with me? Palestine, black, things along those lines. Ham. Stems from Genesis 9, where Noah curses his grandson Canaan to be a servant of servants. After Ham saw Noah naked, while not originally about race in Judaism, his narrative was historically misinterpreted and misused by various groups, particularly in the American South, to justify the enslavement of black people. Key details regarding the curse of Ham, curse of Canaan. Biblical origin in Genesis 9:20-27. After Noah gets drunk, his son Ham, father of Canaan, acts disrespectfully. And there's a lot of different versions of this. Some have to do with sexual acts. Some of it just, he saw his dad's cock. And there's a bunch of variations. We have no idea if this ever took place or, what's what. And again, shitty translations have run through one too many tongues. Yeah? And or, ink, for lack of better words. Noah curses Canaan, Ham's son, to be a slave to his brothers, Shem and Japheth. So this is outright stating, essentially, black is subservient to yellow and white. Just to be clear. And that's questionable and then some. Does it reflect reality in some way? It's worth kicking that around, nudge, nudge, something, something. It might be telling you something deeper. Not that people, flesh and blood, should be slaves, but it might be telling you something else about how reality works. You dig? Assume I'm wrong, and I just told you something. That's a pun, by the way. Theological interpretation. Within traditional Jewish, Christian, and Islamic theology, the curse is a curse of servitude for Canaan and his descendants, with no biblical connection to race, skin color, or African people, despite the fact that Ham relates to Africa and the color black. Historical misuse. I tell you guys all the time, there's a method to my madness. Usually I don't knock out clean deliveries for the most part because superficial internet babies need to see a narcissistic reaction video. They need to have access to emojis, and they need some pointless TikTok noises straight out of the MK Ultra sub projects in order to, be eager to click repost. That should terrify you. We're being dumbed down and manipulated on a daily basis, and it's worse than ever before. TikTok is a prime example of the MK Ultra sub-projects. So is Netflix. Historical misuse. Starting roughly in the 18th and 19th centuries, the curse was reinterpreted by some theologians, I like that, but theologians and proponents of slavery to justify the enslavement of black people, falsely claiming that Ham's descendants were black Africans. Well, they relate to the landmass and, absorbing all color. Assume that I'm fucking wrong. All signs point to it, and they're Semitic in origin. LDS. And usually I don't say that because you got a lot of people with more melanin in their skin who claim that they're better than everybody these days, too. You got a lot with less melanin doing the same thing. And that's a problem, just to be clear. The Hegelian dialectic, which is blue versus red, yeah? Or black versus white, if you will, is fascism in practice. It's the core tenet behind fascism. I like to tell people that communism is a shade of fascism, and they argue otherwise based on popular opinion and hearsay. Would you agree that most people would say that communism is diametrically opposed with, or the opposite of fascism? Well, guess what, motherfuckers? That's the Hegelian dialectic, which is fascism in practice! Because I'm right. And most people are misleading each other. LDS, and I think I might have said LSD, but LDS interpretation. In the 19th century, some leaders within the LDS Church, Mormonism, which is an outright corruption and flat-out bullshit. Let me tell you about my magic plates and hats, everybody. So I can have multiple wives, and a number of other ridiculous things that I should never have been afforded. It's a corruption, it's bullshit. Assume I'm wrong. Taught that the curse, all religion, social control, I'm a walking disclaimer statement, in the event these things have never dawned on you, taught that the curse was connected to black skin, identifying the descendants of Canaan as black, though modern doctrine has moved away from this interpretation. Well, you can move away from something, or you could do what I did today in under a half an hour and connect the dots from there, because all signs point to what I've highlighted in this shitty presentation. Once again, nudge, nudge, something, something. No scriptural basis for race. Except for, the etymology and all the other signs. The fact that they're Semitic in origin. The idea that the curse of Ham resulted in a black skin color is a theological fabrication. Not a teaching found in the text of the Bible or Jewish scripture. Now, it might not say it outright in the Bible, but this also has to do with narratives you're spoon-fed, like what I highlighted having to do with communism and fascism. If you're capable of using your brain, you can reason things out based on logic. You don't have to, have something paraded around in front of you, superficially speaking, which is what people see on the box and the big screen these days. Technically the internet, which is why you have a feed. You can connect the dots on your own, and I encourage you to do so, because most people are fucking things up, and that's why things are bad. The 99% support the 1%. And holy moly, there's still answers available to you. Honestly, there's nothing but answers available to you that reflect reality. And we still have tools at our disposal, is my point. Google is a tool of propaganda, but if you work with it, you might just be able to devise, a clever way to make it work for you. You do have to be diligent. You do have to compare and contrast. You have to dig deep. Sometimes, it's going to take, what I usually will say is you're going to get things wrong more often than you're going to get them right, which is very discouraging, and most superficial internet babies will give up because they have an endless slush pile of propaganda to repeat. They have entertainment. They have confused entertainment with research. And that's also why things are bad. That's also why you and I have access to the DARPA internet, which was outlined in a Davos panel over 30 years ago. The Davos panel, for review, is the public version of the Bilderberg Group. The Davos panel provides a public transcript to you and I alike every single fucking year. And they tell us how they're going to subjugate us further and further and further, because the goal is control and they're tightening the noose. Assume that I'm wrong. The narrative of the Curse of Ham is a prominent example of scriptural misinterpretation used to uphold racial oppression, rather than a doctrine rooted in authentic Jewish tradition. Would you say that the Bible is inherently a Jewish document? What say you, Google? Yes! So what the fuck do I know? It just contradicted itself again. Thanks for hanging out.
This name, Herno, now, and everything. Well, they are going out and over there in this dark forest. Be relentless, or smoke, no such, yeah, Musa. Maybe it's your none. Saddam, this year, but my God, you will know what it is. Smoke, yeah, we, yeah, we, Musa. Why, we know what, her, there's a zero, US. Yes, they are in football having it must be sneezed. What I know is that the walking is the look at it, you know, see that. So, if you want to sneeze, so, well, I said, we now went on him. Said, Lord, I remember, I'm moving.